I can still smell the charcoal from here, sitting alone in my backyard in Omaha, staring at the fence that separates me from the Andersons' place, where everything went to hell 3 months ago. Their grill's probably fired up right now for another neighborhood gathering. Another party I'm not invited to. Will never be invited to again. It started with such good intentions. Memorial Day weekend, the first real warm day after a brutal winter. Carl Anderson had knocked on our door that morning, all smiles and neighborly charm. "Big barbecue tonight," he'd said. "Everyone's coming. You and Doug better be there." Doug had been excited. He always was about neighborhood stuff. 7 years we'd lived on Maple Street, and he still acted like every block party was Christmas morning. Me? I'd rather have spent the evening with a bottle of wine and Netflix. But I'd smiled, promised we'd bring potato salad, played the good wife. That's what I told myself I was doing later. Playing the good wife. Being social. Making an effort. Not sabotaging my marriage and destroying every relationship within a 5-block radius. "You sure you want to wear that?" Doug had asked as I came downstairs that evening. I'd chosen my red sundress, the one that hit mid-thigh and showed off the yoga classes I'd been suffering through. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing. You look beautiful, just seems a bit loud for a backyard barbecue, maybe?" "It's a dress, Doug. Not lingerie." He'd held up his hands in surrender, that gesture I hated, the one that said he was choosing peace over truth. "You're right. Sorry, you look great. I should have changed. Should have recognized his discomfort as the warning it was. But I was 35, childless despite 3 years of trying, and desperate to feel like something other than a failed incubator. If a dress made me feel desirable, I was wearing the dress. The Andersons' backyard was already packed when we arrived. Every neighbor within shouting distance, kids running through sprinklers, men clustered around Carl's new grill like it was a holy relic. I left Doug to join them and went to find alcohol. That's where I met him. Tyler, Carl's cousin from Kansas City, in town for the long weekend. He was manning the drink cooler, fishing out beers for a line of thirsty neighbors. "Red or white?" he asked when I approached. "Whatever's strongest." He laughed, pulled out a bottle of rosé. "Family party getting to you already?" "I'm not family, just a neighbor." "Lucky you." "I'm stuck here by blood." Tyler. He handed me the wine, fingers brushing mine. "Jessica." That should have been it. Brief introduction, polite smile, move on to mingle with people I actually knew. Instead, I stayed by the cooler, accepted the generous pour he offered, laughed at his jokes about Midwestern barbecue culture. He was younger than me, late 20s, maybe 30. Dark hair, blue eyes, and the kind of easy confidence that sat in his shoulders, and the slow way he smiled, like he'd never had his life disappoint him. He flirted like breathing, natural, effortless, intoxicating to someone who'd been invisible in her own home for months. "So, Jessica," he said, refilling my glass without asking, "what's a woman like you doing in suburban Nebraska?" "Living the dream," I said, heavy on the sarcasm. "White picket fence, 2-car garage, husband who thinks watching golf is a personality trait." "Sounds thrilling." "Oh, it is." Yesterday's big excitement was the HOA newsletter. Someone's lawn was half an inch too long. Scandal. He laughed, leaned closer. "I'd lose my mind out here. No offense." "None taken. Sometimes I think I already have." It was true. The suburbs were Doug's dream, not mine. I'd wanted to stay in Chicago, keep my marketing job, live somewhere with culture and energy. But Doug's company had offered him a promotion to their Omaha office. Better money, better hours, better for starting a family. 3 years later, no family, no job, no friends except the neighborhood wives who discussed grocery store sales like they were stock portfolios. Just me, Doug, and a 4-bedroom house echoing with the absence of children. "You need another drink," Tyler decided, producing a bottle of vodka from a gym bag tucked under the table. "Let me make you a real cocktail." I should have said no. Should have found Doug, stuck by his side, been the supportive wife he deserved. Instead, I held out my glass and watched Tyler pour vodka like water. "Trying to get me drunk?" I asked, attempting flirtation I'd forgotten how to do. "Just trying to make your suburban nightmare more bearable." The drinks went down easy. Too easy. By the time the sun started setting, I'd lost count. The yard had taken on a soft focus quality, like a movie filmed through gauze. Tyler's attention felt like sunshine after a long winter, warm, necessary, impossible to resist. "There you are." Doug appeared beside me, plate of food in hand. "I've been looking everywhere." "Got you a burger before they ran out." "Not hungry," I said, words slightly slurred. "You should eat something. How much have you had?" "Doug, this is Tyler, Carl's cousin, Tyler, my husband." They shook hands, Doug polite as always, Tyler's smile just a bit too knowing. "I should go check on the potato salad," Doug said, though we both knew it didn't need checking. "Nice meeting you, Tyler." He left, and I should have followed, should have recognized the life preserver he was throwing. Instead, I turned back to Tyler. "He seems nice," Tyler said. "He is nice. Very nice. Extremely nice. Probably the nicest man in Nebraska. But? No but. Just nice." I finished my drink, held out the glass. "Hit me again." The party swirled around us. Neighbors I'd known for years became background noise. All I could focus on was Tyler. His stories about traveling, his laugh, the way he looked at me like I was interesting. Desirable, worth pursuing. "Want to see Carl's man cave?" he asked eventually. "He's been bragging about it all weekend. Pool table, full bar, the works. Lead the way." Standing was harder than expected. The ground tilted, righted itself, tilted again. Tyler's hand on my elbow steadied me, guided me toward the house. "Lightweight," he teased. "Shut up, I'm perfectly fine." I wasn't. I was drunk, married, and following a stranger into my neighbor's house while my husband stood 50 feet away, but the rational part of my brain had drowned somewhere around the fourth vodka tonic. Carl's basement was everything promised. Leather furniture, massive TV, pool table that probably cost more than my car. And empty. Everyone else was outside enjoying the perfect weather. "Nice setup," I said, running my hand along the pool table's edge. "Want to play?" "I'm terrible." "I'll teach you." Cliché. So painfully cliché. But when he moved behind me, showed me how to hold the cue, I leaned back into him anyway. He smelled like cologne and possibility, like every bad decision I'd been too responsible to make. "Like this?" I asked, knowing I was doing it wrong, wanting his hands to correct me. "Almost." "Here." His hands covered mine, his breath on my neck. The whole scene straight from a bad movie, but I was too drunk and too lonely to care about originality. "I should go back," I said without moving. "Should you?" "My husband is outside, not paying attention. When's the last time he looked at you the way I am?" The answer hurt. Months. Maybe longer. Doug loved me, I knew that. But it was comfortable love, routine love. The kind that assumed I'd always be there, like a favorite chair or a reliable car. "That's not fair," I said. "Lots of things aren't fair." He turned me around, cue stick forgotten. "Like you being stuck in suburbia. Like that dress going unappreciated, like dash quote." I kissed him. Or he kissed me. Or we kissed each other. Details blurred by vodka and bad judgment. All I knew was his mouth on mine, his hands on my waist, the thrill of being wanted by someone who didn't know about my failed ovaries or my tendency to leave dishes in the sink, or my inability to remember which day was recycling. "Upstairs," he said against my mouth. "Bathroom, more private." "I can't." 5 minutes, that's all, just 5 minutes of feeling alive. Alive. That's what I'd been missing. That spark, that danger, that proof I was more than a suburban stereotype waiting for a baby that would never come. We stumbled upstairs, me giggling like a teenager, him shushing me with kisses. The main floor was empty too, everyone still outside. The bathroom door closed behind us with a click that sounded final. "This is crazy," I said as he pressed me against the sink. "Good crazy or bad crazy?" "I don't know yet." His hands were under my dress. My hands were in his hair. 7 years of fidelity dissolving in a stranger's bathroom, backed by the sound of my neighbor's laughter floating through the window. "Wait," I said as his fingers found the edge of my underwear. "Wait, The door opened. Not a knock, not a warning, just Doug standing in the doorway, face cycling through emotions too fast to track. Confusion, recognition, devastation. "Jess!" Tyler's hands disappeared. I pushed down my dress, tried to step away, but there was nowhere to go in the tiny bathroom. We were caught, completely, undeniably caught. "Doug, He was already gone. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, the slam of the front door. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking very young. "Shit. I'm sorry. I didn't think. Get out." "Jessica, get out." He left, and I was alone with my reflection. Smeared lipstick, tangled hair, dress askew. I looked exactly like what I was. A drunk woman who'd just destroyed her marriage for 5 minutes of feeling wanted. The walk of shame through the party was brutal. Conversations didn't so much stop as hitch for a second as I passed. Had Doug told anyone? Or did I just look that obvious? I found our potato salad sitting untouched on the food table, grabbed the bowl like armor, and fled. Doug's car was gone from our driveway. Inside, the house felt different. Emptier. Like it knew what I'd done and was already choosing sides. I called him 17 times, straight to voicemail. Texted apologies, excuses, please to come home and talk. Nothing. He came back at 3 a.m. I heard the door, his footsteps on the stairs, the guest room door closing. The guest room. 7 years, and he'd never slept in the guest room. "Doug?" I knocked softly. "Please, can we talk?" "Not tonight." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was drunk and Jess." "Not tonight." Morning was worse. He emerged showered, dressed, packed bag in hand. "Where are you going?" "Hotel. I need to think." "Doug, please." It didn't mean anything. We didn't even what? Fuck? Is that supposed to make me feel better? That you only let him finger you in Carl's bathroom? The words were so crude, so unlike him. I flinched. "I made a mistake." "No. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is burning dinner. This was a choice. Multiple choices. To flirt, to drink, to go inside with him. To let him touch you while I was outside wondering where my wife went. I'm sorry. I know you are. Doesn't change anything." He left. I spent the day in bed, phone silent, blinds drawn. By evening, the neighborhood WhatsApp group was buzzing. I'd been removed, but Diane from 2 houses down made sure I knew what was being said. Everyone's talking about it. Tyler told Carl everything. Carl told his wife. She told the book club. It's everywhere. What are they saying? That you were all over Carl's cousin. That Doug caught you, well. That it's been coming for ages with how you dress, how you act at parties, always a little too much. How I act. What does that mean? You know, flirty, desperate, like you're trying to prove something. Desperate. Was that how they saw me? A childless woman in 2 short dresses, laughing too loud, drinking too much, practically begging for attention? Diane, I have to go. But Jessica? Maybe find somewhere else to do your grocery shopping for a while, just until things calm down. The isolation was immediate and complete. Neighbors who'd waved every morning now averted their eyes. The mom's walking group rerouted to avoid our street. Even the Amazon delivery guy seemed to know, dropping packages and fleeing like I was contagious. Doug came back after a week, but only to talk logistics. "I think we should separate," he said, sitting at our kitchen table like a stranger. "Officially. I'll move out, give you time to figure out what you want." "I want you." I want our marriage. Our marriage ended in that bathroom, Jess. Maybe before that. I've been thinking, and it's just the final symptom of something that's been dying for a while. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time we were happy, really happy, not just going through the motions? I wanted to argue, but couldn't, because he was right. We'd been running on autopilot for months, maybe years. The failed fertility treatments had broken something between us. Not the love, but the hope, the shared vision of our future. I thought we were working through it, I said weakly. I was working. You were drowning. And instead of reaching for me, you reached for... He gestured vaguely. Whatever that was. 5 minutes of stupidity. 5 minutes that told me everything I needed to know. You'd rather risk our marriage for a stranger's attention than talk to me about what you need. He moved out the next day. Half the furniture, none of the blame. The house felt cavernous without him, without his morning coffee routine, his sports podcasts, his reliable presence. The divorce papers came a month later, uncontested, fair, more than I deserved. Doug, decent to the end, even in leaving. I heard Jessica's getting divorced, I overheard at the grocery store 2 aisles over. Poor Doug. Can you imagine? Your wife and some random guy at a neighborhood barbecue? I heard she was basically naked when he found them. No! Really? That's what Carol said. And apparently this wasn't the first time. She's been throwing herself at every man who... I abandoned my cart, fled to my car, drove home through tears. It wasn't true. There'd been no one before Tyler, would be no one after, but the truth didn't matter. The story had taken on a life of its own, growing more sordid with each telling. You need to move, my sister said during one of her pity visits from Des Moines. Start fresh somewhere. This is my home. No, this is your prison. Every day you stay here, you're the woman who ruined her marriage at a barbecue. Somewhere else you could be anyone. But I couldn't leave. Couldn't sell the house Doug and I had chosen together, painted together, planned to fill with children together. So I stayed, the neighborhood pariah, watching life continue around me through windows. Carl had another barbecue for 4th of July. I watched from my deck, counting the people I knew. The Johnsons from the corner. The new couple who'd moved into the Friedman's old place. Doug's poker buddies, who'd chosen him in the friendship divorce. No invitation came. No knock on the door. No neighborly pretense that I still belonged. Karma, I heard someone say, voice carrying over the fence. She thought she was so much better than everyone, always complaining about suburbia like we forced her to live here. Doug's better off. Did you see his new girlfriend? Teacher at the elementary school, much more his speed. New girlfriend. The words hit like a physical blow. I went inside, poured wine, drank until the sounds of happiness next door faded to white noise. August came with a moving truck. Doug collecting the last of his things. He'd filled out, looked healthier, happier. The gray that had crept into his temples during our fertility struggles seemed lighter somehow. You look good, I said from the doorway. Thanks, you too. A lie. I looked like what I was, a day-drinking divorcee in yesterday's pajamas. I heard you're dating someone. He paused in loading boxes. Yeah, Sarah, she's great. Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy. So do you, Jess. Do I, though? He set down the box, really looked at me for the first time in months. What happened? It was awful. But you're not an awful person. You're someone who made an awful choice while in pain. There's a difference. Tell that to the neighborhood. Fuck the neighborhood. The profanity startled me. Doug never swore. You think their opinions matter? Half of them are miserable in their own marriages. They're just grateful to have someone else's failure to focus on. You don't hate me? I did. For a while. But hate takes energy I'd rather spend on building something new. He picked up the box again. You should try it. Building something new. Somewhere else. Maybe, I said, though we both knew I wouldn't. He left with the last load as the sun set. I stood in my empty driveway, watching his truck disappear, then noticed Mrs. Patterson across the street watching me watch him. She turned away when our eyes met, scurried inside like proximity to me might infect her own marriage. That night, I sat in my backyard with a bottle of wine, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood. Kids playing, dogs barking, husbands coming home to wives who hadn't destroyed everything for 5 minutes of feeling special. Tyler had texted once, a week after the barbecue. "Hey, sorry about everything. Hope you're okay." I'd deleted it without responding. What was there to say? Thanks for ruining my life. Thanks for being the match I used to burn everything down. Because that's what I'd done. Burned it all. Marriage, friendships, reputation, community. All for what? A drunk grope in a bathroom with a man whose last name I never learned. Labor Day weekend arrived with another Anderson barbecue. The smell of charcoal drifted over the fence, mixing with laughter and the clink of bottles. Last year, I'd helped Carl prep, arranging coolers, stringing lights. This year, I was the cautionary tale they'd tell after the kids went to bed. "Remember last year?" someone said, loud enough to carry. "When Jessica—" "Shh, she might hear you." So what? Maybe she should, acting like that at her age. Her age, 35. Hardly ancient, but old enough to know better. Old enough to value what I had instead of destroying it for novelty. I went inside, closed the windows, turned up the TV. But I could still feel it. The life continuing without me, around me, in spite of me. The neighborhood that had once felt suffocating now felt essential, and I'd exiled myself from it completely. My phone rang. Mom calling for her weekly check-in. "How are you, honey?" "Fine." "Jessica." "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired." "Have you thought more about moving, starting over?" "I am starting over, just here." "Honey, you're not starting anything. You're haunting your old life. It's not healthy." She was right, but leaving felt like admitting defeat, like confirming every whispered judgment about the desperate housewife who couldn't hack suburbia and imploded rather than adapt. "I'll think about it," I lied. "You need friends, Jessica. A support system. You can't heal in isolation." "I have friends." "Where?" "Who? When's the last time you did anything social?" 3 months ago, Carl Anderson's barbecue, the last time I'd see most of these people up close. The night I'd traded everything for nothing and couldn't even remember if it felt good in the moment. "I have to go, Mom." "Jessica." "I'll call you later." I hung up, poured more wine, and returned to my vigil in the backyard. The Anderson party was winding down. Goodbyes being said, promises to do this again soon, kids being carried to cars asleep on parent shoulders. Normal life, the life I'd had and thrown away. "You okay over there?" I jumped. Carl Anderson stood at our shared fence, beer in hand. "Carl, hi. Yes, I'm fine." "Haven't seen you around much." "Been busy." "Right." He took a sip of beer, seemed to wrestle with something. "Look, Jessica." "What happened?" "It was fucked up. What you did." "I know." "Doug's a good man. Didn't deserve that." "I know." "But—" He paused. "But you don't deserve to be erased either. It's been 3 months. Maybe it's time people moved on." "People don't want to move on." I'm too good a story. "Yeah, well, stories get old. New scandals come along." He finished his beer. "The Thompsons are having their anniversary party next month." "Maybe you should come." Carl dash. "Just think about it. Linda's making that spinach dip you like." He walked away before I could respond. I sat frozen, processing the first kindness anyone from the neighborhood had shown in months. An olive branch, however small. But did I deserve it? Did I deserve forgiveness, acceptance, a second chance at belonging? Or was isolation the price I'd rightfully paid for 5 minutes of selfish stupidity? The yard was empty now. Party debris scattered across the grass. Cups, plates, evidence of community I'd excluded myself from. Tomorrow, Carl would clean it all up, probably with help from other neighbors. The ritual of shared labor I'd loved when we first moved here. My wine was gone. The bottle empty, like my house, my life, my prospects. 35, divorced, and infamous in a 5-block radius. Not exactly the life I'd imagined. But Doug was right. I wasn't an awful person. Just a person who'd made an awful choice, who'd lit a match in a moment of pain and watched everything burn. The question now was whether to stay in the ashes or finally start rebuilding. I went inside, found the box of photos I hadn't been able to look at since Doug left. Our wedding, first house, vacations, the fertility clinic parking lot, both of us hopeful. Life before the fire. I couldn't have that life back. Couldn't undo Tyler, the bathroom, the moment Doug's face collapsed in that doorway. But maybe I could build something else. Something smaller, quieter, but mine. The Thompsons' anniversary invitation would be a test. Would the neighborhood let me back in, even marginally? Could I handle their stares, their whispers, their judgment? Did I want to? 3 months ago, I'd wanted to feel alive. Had achieved it in the worst possible way. Now, sitting alone in my empty house, I just wanted to feel something. Anything beyond this numbing exile I'd created. Maybe that started with spinach dip at an anniversary party. Maybe it started with moving. Maybe it started with simply acknowledging that I'd burned everything down, and now had to figure out what grew in scorched earth. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd clean up. Shower, put on clothes that weren't pajamas, take a walk, face the neighbors if I encountered them. Stop hiding like my shame was contagious. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was more than I'd had in 3 months. I looked out at the Andersons' backyard one more time. The lights were off now, party officially over. But there would be others, block parties, holiday gatherings, summer barbecues. Life would continue whether I participated or not. Tyler was probably back in Kansas City, already forgetting the suburban housewife who'd kissed him in a basement. Doug was building something new with Sarah, healing from wounds I'd inflicted. Everyone was moving forward, except me. The clock read midnight. September now, the season of change, kids back in school, leaves starting to turn. Maybe it was time I changed too. Not back to who I was. That person was gone, burned up in Carl Anderson's bathroom. But forward to whoever I might become. A woman who'd made a terrible choice and lived with the consequences. Who'd lost everything and had to decide if anything was worth rebuilding. Who'd learned that 5 minutes could destroy 7 years, that suburban acceptance was conditional, that loneliness could make you desperate enough to risk it all. I closed the blinds, turned off the lights, climbed stairs to the bedroom I no longer shared. Tomorrow would come whether I was ready or not. The neighbors would whisper whether I hid or not. Life would continue whether I participated or not. But tonight I sat with my choices, all of them. The dress, the drinks, the flirting, the bathroom, the lie I'd been living that made destruction feel like freedom. I owned them all. Every terrible decision that led to this empty house, this ruined reputation, this wine-soaked reckoning in the dark. And maybe that was the first step. Not forgiveness. That would take more time than I could imagine. But acknowledgement, acceptance. The understanding that I'd authored this catastrophe and now had to write whatever came next. Even if the only reader was me, alone in a neighborhood that would never look at me the same way again.